During those early 70s, there were a lot of people being evicted from places where people have lived for a long time. And I think for our generation, we remember places like Kalama Valley, the different plantation towns. And I think for us, what became a real concern were the people living in Ota Camp in Waipahu.
Do you remember where it's located in Waipahu?
Well, if you know where the dump is, St. Joseph Church, and there's a river going through there, or stream. Ota Camp is in there, and you would never guess or never know that as you enter that area, it's like going back to the early 1930s, where people lived openly in plantation-style homes, Quonset huts.
Most of the people were of Filipino ancestry. There was a mixture of local-born, Hawaii-born Filipinos, and there was also a good mixture of Filipinos who just came in, because after the 1965 immigration law, it was so easy for the residents to get and petition their relatives to come in.
Can you tell us what was the big issue in Ota Camp?
They were being evicted because the excuse of the developer was there was a new rule for sewage system, and the developer said that all those residents, about 131 of them, should leave because he wanted to install a new sewage system. That was the so-called reason, invented reason, but actually, Waipahu Amity Incorporated, they wanted to build another housing development for that area, which the Ota Camp residents couldn't afford. So he wanted to evict them.
When you receive your letter that you have to move,
I was confused. I don't know what to do. You know, when we received the letter of eviction in February 1972, know what to do. You know, although my grandfather trying to look for places and stuff to rent, you know, to move in, but he cannot find.
so what did the residents do to stop the eviction?
Later of that, after that we received the letter of eviction, about 2 weeks after that, then people try to get together and discuss the situation, try to discuss what kind of letter they're receiving and how they feel. And at the same time, Peter Tagalog was in Leeward Community College. I guess he mentions about the problem in the camp.
The immediate response was panic. They were so afraid. In fact, one resident was so afraid, he died that early March 1972. He died. But for some reason, they congregated and went to the house of Pitagalog, and then they started talking about what can we do, what could they do.
And what did they do?
What they did was they asked Pitagalog to look around and talk to people who could possibly help.
I wanted to ask you, was your participation in the Ota Camp struggle in Waipahu? Can you tell me a little bit about your participation in that struggle?
I started the class, and so the class was a self-development class. And in the class, by coincidence, Pete Tagalog was in there. And Pete never had any idea of leadership, you know, except in the informal culture. But to have leadership skills that can negotiate your culture and the other culture and to promote change, he never had. So what we had to do, what we had to teach him, first of all, be confident. You have a mission, and your mission is in your heart, and you need to, fulfill that. So the courses that we taught was teaching them to be confident and, of course, to make the world a better world. And for him, it was on the bottom. There's no way he's going to improve if he doesn't go up to the people. And the people were looking up to him because he was one of the few that went to college at his age. And so his brother followed him, and Jimmy Tagalog, his nephew, also. They combined their mind to make Ota Camp a better place to live in without being violent. A lot of times, Filipinos are known for their violence. Yeah. So we told them, take a different approach, because if you're going to take violence, we're going to end up in jail. And no sense. What you going to do when you're in jail? They say, yeah. So you got to study the Constitution. You got to study the law and how to bring about the best way of changing the camp so that it benefits the people.
Before the struggle, we hardly know each other. We only know the close neighbor.
A steering committee worked in the community and among the residents.
The first thing that they did was they visited the families and talk story with them, because they said in the past they knew each other, but they did not care. What they say was everybody minded their own business. They did not really talk to them heart to heart. But after the eviction struggle, they made it a point to go visit, talk story, maybe according to Tagalog. Sometimes they would spend the whole day just talking and listening to the stories of their life experiences. Especially, there were about 13 single men there who were mostly retired plantation workers. And they told Pete and the steering committee what their experiences were.
We're asking for help, so who came to help them?
Told me would-be activists, the young activists from both, it's the Kabataan, Katipunan, and they were the ones who came and gave their support also.
And in what way did they support them?
For the young Hawaiian group, they came to support them in terms of strategy and encouragement. For the young Filipino group, they gave them encouragement and pride for being Filipinos and for being able to fight and stand up for their right.
Do you know who they are?
The Hawaiian group, one of the persons that I interviewed was Gary Kubota. He got involved there, and he said that one of the things he wanted to do was to promote good media reporting for the group. I think the Filipino group provided a counterbalance to the Hawaiian activist group, who I think wanted a more confrontational strategy in fighting against eviction. Whereas I understand from my interviews with you and Leon Dagdagan, the Filipino group just wanted to support and follow what the residents wanted. And the residents wanted a peaceful confrontation, organized confrontation, wherein they can get a solution to their problem, which is just to find housing.
And to help the Ota Camp residents.
Well, I guess, for the outsider, they would have seen our group as becoming organizers for these folks. But in actuality, the call for help was really quite obvious. And that was our main purpose as Filipino, to try and help our community to see if we could make or help them make a better life for themselves, or at least make sure that whatever journey the politicians or public servants dish out to them, that it's done fairly, lawfully, ethically, and with compassion. We stayed within Ota Camp to try and support the people there, Pete Tagalog and Candy, his brother, and the other people that lived in Ota Camp, to be their gophers. You know, if they needed certain kind of information, or if they wanted to make their issue known more, we would, you know, help them do the networking. But it wasn't enough to just do it among themselves or within the Waipahu community. It was important to have the public officials know what was happening.
And how did you manage to let the public know what's going on?
It took a lot of dedication and commitment and convincing that we needed to really go outside of our comfort zone and head our way to the city council, to the state capitol, to talk to representatives. Well, up until then, they knew nothing about Ota Camp.
What was your role in the Ota Camp? What did you do?
Well, my primary role as a support person was to help translate the English language, American language, to Ilocano. That's I knew how to speak Ilocano because there were quite a few residents in Ota Camp who were Ilocanos, and I'm sure they knew how to speak. They understood English, but it would have been better to hear it in Ilocano for a more meaningful understanding.
And you mentioned that you work with the residents. How did they feel, young Filipinos coming over there to support them? How did they feel?
They were quite thankful that they were not the only ones who were in the struggle. They were thankful that there was an outside group that understood what they were going through.
How did they feel about the non-Filipinos being in Ota Camp?
Well, I think those of us who were, if you want to call us the core, made sure that whoever did come that were supposedly non-Filipino, that we gave them a good orientation of how they should interact, so that they understand, you know, what they're coming, that the welcoming that they receive is based on trust.
Any challenges or obstacles being involved in Ota Camp?
Well, the struggles was how I was trying to get the city and the state, Hawaii state, to be able to come with a solution of funding some land that Ota Camp people could move to. Now, one of the main reasons why Ota Camp occurred was this group of Filipinos say that the owner of Ota Camp had no right to develop the land. That wasn't the reason why they resisted. They just wanted to be moved to another place as a whole group because they claimed that they were really like a family, a close-knit group of people.
How did you folks stay together for so many years? What kept you folks together?
I guess encouragement, you know, even though we don't know, we win or we lose for the fights, as long as we are get together and fight for something, and we just develop the faith that one day we will win, and that's how the kind of strength that we keep in our inside, you know, and thanks to all the supporters and our strong leadership.
And what was their strategy and support from the community or from the politicians?
Did it Informally, they held informal meetings without making public about it. So they did it by going to the meetings with Herb Takahashi, the lawyer. They did it with going with Major Okada, a community organizer who helped them.
You as one of the main organizers, that you were carrying a Filipino flag. Can you tell us why?
Well, again, it's going out into the community without any kind of symbol to identify what we represented. It was important to have that as a symbol to show that, you know, this is a particular group that was being, we felt, unjustly treated. And so it was important to have that flag as our symbol.
One instance where the residents marched on the Capitol and to have their voices be heard so that the legislators could also know that this was really an issue which they needed to be solved.
Okay. The first one that they always remember, if you talk to them now, would be the March 30, 1972. That was the first public demonstration.
And where was that at?
They went to the state capitol. And the strategy was, it was the birthday of Governor Burns, and they were gonna sing happy birthday. And they wanted to see him, but actually he was so busy to see them, so they were not able to see them. So they marched to the state capitol, and they made speeches there, the residents and the supporters. And they also visited the House of Representatives and the state legislature. The upshot of that public demonstration was, one, they got confidence. The residents knew that they could do it. They were not scared anymore. Some of them were scared that there might be violence. And I understand some of the supporters were also trying to monitor and had marshals during the demonstration. And then, secondly, I think after that demonstration, the larger public knew of what was happening, and that was March. In April, the state legislature passed a resolution, imagine, thanking the Ota Camp residents for fighting for the right of ethnic communities to survive in Hawaii. And the legislators also asked for the governor to act on a law that was a 1970 law which authorizes the governor to provide funding to relocate families who are being evicted.
And who was the governor at that time?
Governor Burns at the time.
What do you think of the impact of that demonstration?
I think it was a positive impact. Demonstration didn't try to become violent or disruptive of any process going on in the legislature. We just showed up, had some speeches in the rotunda of the Capitol. Legislators and the governor came out and watched the proceedings, what was going on down below. And I think that raised the awareness, the needs of these Filipinos.
That we had awakened as a Filipino people that we had to come together and empathize with what was happening to our people, and that in order to overcome that which the government and the political system was being given to us, we had to actively for our rights and liberties as people.
Okay, we started our struggle in 1972. we won, we get the notice that we have the place to relocate ourselves in 1974. To me, it's a short while that the struggle went by and then we win.
He's a really committed leader, and I think Pete Tagalog, you know, accepted that role and he stayed with it. There's something to say about being out in front, persistent, continuously communicating. Not only that, it's making sure that it's not just the leader, but the other people that live there, and that the leader represented everyone's sentiments. And I think Pete Tagalog had a lot to do with that.
There was a second phase when they were already at Westlock at the new Ota Camp. They moved there in 75. And then around 1980, the developer who was in charge, who built the housing there, wanted to evict them again because that developer, I think, had an eye of building a new housing there. And the excuse, as the excuse used by the early developer, the first one, the first phase, was that the Ota Camp were not paying their rents to him. Because when they were relocated, Fasi, the city donated the site. And the state governed Ujimori, that was the developer's name, 400,000 plus of money to build those houses. Ujimori would rent them out to the Ota Camp families. So the Ota Camp families would pay their rentals to Ujimori, and Ujimori would give the mortgage to the state. But there was an arrangement. In 10 years, around 1984, there was a 10-year option. Ota Camp residents could assume the mortgage. So Umori should get out of the picture by 1984, and the Ota Camp residents would assume the mortgage and pay the state. But the developer did not want to disappear. Instead, he wanted the residents to disappear so he could take over the land for himself, the mortgage for himself.
So what happened next?
Next, residents decided to fight again. And they fought it again, this time, 3 different strategies. In the first phase, just indirectly talking, sweetly, and public demonstration. In this third phase, the Hawaii Housing State Authority, so they can assume the mortgage. And thirdly, because they were sued, Ujimori went to court to sue them. They wanted the Ota Camp people to go away. They were successful, and by 1987, this is the second phase, they were able to have the right to assume the mortgage and have the right to buy the property, which they did eventually. After 2001, they were able to buy their house. They were able to pay their mortgage.
So how many years it took them to fight and win?
So, started in 1972. They won the complete victory from the court in 1987.
The Ota Camp struggle was organized by Filipinos and led by Filipinos?
Yes, I would say were quite successful. And Herb Takahashi even said so, that he was so impressed by the Ota Camp struggle because the Filipinos were leading it and no one was dictating them on what to do, what strategies, what they should do. As I told you, in the first phase, the supporters came, they helped, but they were also young students with their careers. And once the Ota Camp people were relocated in the first phase, some of the supporters, followed their own dreams, their own families, their own careers. So they're gone. So they help, but the core is there, the residents. The core stayed on. And in the second phase, a new group came to help also. So they come and go, and I would credit them for helping, but I think it's still the perseverance of the residents that is important. Because if they gave up, nothing would happen if they did not stuck by it.